So I had thought / hope when I had set up the tent that was it for the rain, but about an hour after I was fully in here, it started raining again, and it seems like it rained for a good chunk of the night. Clearish skies for the moment, but with how much water has come down, I am dreading getting back on that dirt road. I was sliding quite a bit yesterday. It is chilly this morning. I'd been hoping for some sunshine. At the moment, I'm just getting dripped on by the trees, but everything is soaked, and I can see the road over there, and it is still a mud pit. Despite the fact it never tells me anything useful, I did do the weather report on the Garmin and basically didn't get anything useful. Surprise, surprise. So I don't know what's going to happen today. It was claiming that there were thunderstorms in the afternoon, sun in the morning. I can see some clouds off in the distance. It is cold, though, and it is supposed to be, feels like in the 40s all day, looks like. There are many things I really adore about camping out here, but having to put on soaking wet shoes and rain gear is not one of them. At least I'm not out in the humid lands out east. Stuff will dry, it just sucks pulling on wet shoes, socks, etc. Because of the moisture, I have been just sleeping in my base layer. I normally swap out into at least just the fleece or something like that, but this is bone dry because I slept in it. If I had had it wadded up or even in the sleeping bag, it would be kind of damp. So it's kind of temporary discomfort at the start of the night versus comfort in the morning. Usually one of the problems when it starts raining like that and I have to stop is getting water. I mean, I can collect water off of the fly, but that's not necessarily overly sanitary. Who knows where my fly has been wadded up and, lying around. First couple of tries I thought were relatively clear because all the mud starts running down the creeks, but once I looked at it in the bag, it was pretty bad. I eventually found one of those reservoirs that had relatively clear water. I also scrimped, and because of the rain, I wasn't drinking a lot, so I made it work. I'm also starting to get to the point of diminishing returns on this Sawyer. I may try and swap it out if I can find another, or else have Jen send me one. She's going to have to send me probably my down pants and also my, election ballot, so you can back flush these things. I do have the syringe with me, and I will do that probably at the next hotel stop because you have to use clean water since you're sending it through the outflow part of the filter. In my experience, it improves it a little bit, but it never gets it back to just brand new. So considering these are, $45 if you can find them at Walmart, etc. Sometimes even less. I've paid as low as $25 and I've paid as much as like $65. I'm using it enough where it's one of those be nice to myself, buy myself a new filter sort of things. Sun finally made an appearance, so I'm trying to at least get things mostly dry so I can have them put away in the pack. Well, so much for sunshine. Looks like there are increasingly darkening clouds that are popping up again. So when I'm dealing with things getting wet like this, I often don't have the option of saying, oh, everything got wet, off into town. That works on the AT, that doesn't work on a lot of other places. So I tend to view it as kind of how degraded my situation is. So right now, my rain gear is damp, my shoes are soaked. All of my internal stuff, meaning the warm layers when I get into the tent, are dry. So even if I get bone wet, I'm going to be in dry long johns, a dry puffy, a dry sleeping bag. As long as I have that, everything's good. Things start to get problematic when the interior of the tent is wet. Usually that comes from very, very humid areas because then it starts to transfer onto things like the sleeping bag. That's not a problem. It's really only if the sleeping bag were to get really soaked that I would have a situation where I'm like, yeah, okay, I really got to get someplace where I can dry it. So, biggest issues I'm probably going to have at the moment are thermal issues around my feet. My socks and my shoes were just completely sodden after all the rain and puddles and things and vegetation yesterday when I was looking for a camp. They will dry on their own, assuming things stay dry. We shall see. The one other trick I have that I can pull out of my hat here is I carry veggie bags. You know, like when you buy fruit at the store, they have those really thin bags. And I have one other pair of dry socks. So I can put the dry socks on, I can put the bags outside of the sock, and then I can put the entire thing into my shoe. That will keep me warmer than I am right now. I will sweat into the socks, and the bags don't last forever. So I don't pull that trigger on the drop of a hat. At the moment, I'm hoping that walking is going to get the blood flowing with my toes and warm them up enough. It is starting to look decidedly rain-like again. So we'll see. I have about 16 miles to the Grand Mesa Lodge, which is at least going to need to be a recharge point for me. They do apparently have cabins. The prices on the guide have been a few years out of date and quite a bit lower, so who knows? I'm not going to spend a couple of $100 just to dry my socks out. There is a note that they have resupply food and hot food, so I am looking forward to that. I'm just trying to manage my expectations because I've been burned before. I am thankfully out of the rather horrendous bland dinners I had from Redstone. I do have enough snacks where I can tide over one more night if I have to. We'll see. Like I said, my goal is to make the lodge today. Once I leave the lodge, it is 40 miles, I think, to Grand Junction. A lot of that is downhill. Hopefully it is less slippery than this so I can make reasonable time. And then in Grand Junction, I do have a box waiting for me at the post office as of Monday. Jen, having only intermittent contact with me, made an executive decision to send new shoes there. I was of the mind I was just going to walk in these until my parents show up, but that will be another, 10 days or so. So she probably made the better decision. That also means I will get replacement socks, underwear, and even better, bean dinners. So I am looking forward to that. So one other thing rain-wise, I have the ULA Ultra Catalyst, which is made out of ultra material, which is waterproof. ULA doesn't claim that their Ultra Catalyst is completely waterproof. It's not seam sealed or anything. However, with all the rain yesterday, I didn't really have any water leakage on the inside. I do keep the things like, my sleeping bag was wrapped in a trash bag and my electronics are inside of a little Ultra Zip bag. So I do take precaution. But for what it's worth, I basically treat this bag like it's waterproof. At least until the Ultra material starts to delaminate on the inside, which seems to happen with Ultra, seems to happen with EcoPack. And about the only thing I can say is at least they're a little more durable than DCF is for me. And once again, keep in mind my usual disclaimer that my usage levels for gear is way beyond most people. So things will probably last most folks happily for years, and I get, a season or two out of them. Everything has a failure point at some level. It's it is what it is at the moment. If this pack failed, I would buy the exact same pack, which is about the highest praise I can give any sort of gear I'm using. I was a little frustrated with the food bag. The delamination happened near the top, and that's where I'm rolling it up all the time. And that's made of EcoPack. I have one of those printed ones that Hilltop does. And I really like it, and I give them credit when I sent them the issue. And I said, hey, is this just fact of life? Am I doing anything? They did send me a brand new food bag, which I do appreciate customer service, but I think next time I'm just going to say no. I still want to contact them because I want them to know where the failures are, but It is what it is. I don't expect everybody's warranty to cover mat levels of usage. Except for Osprey. They have an amazing guarantee on their packs, and if any of their packs fit my requirements, I would probably be using that, just because as much as I love ULA, the ability to just send in a pack and get a brand new one every single time it wears out does have its advantages. When I used to use an Aether, I think I wore out 3 or 4 of them. So plus side, I got a brand new Aether each time that happened. Downside is I got a brand new Aether, and their general product line direction was to put in a whole bunch of features that, okay, the salesperson at REI can speak up and say, oh yeah, you can do this, you can do this, you have a pack cover that's useless, you know, and you have all this other stuff that just adds weight, and before you know it, you got a 4 or 5 pound pack when it's empty. Never mind when it's fully loaded. That isn't the worst I've seen. I've seen some pretty massive Gregory packs that are like 7 pounds empty, but that is a lot of weight that you're never going to get back. I did try one of their lighter packs. I had an Exos, wore that out once or twice, and I think I have one right now that's pretty much worn out. The problem is when I went to try out the new one, because I'd been through this before, I found that the way they pad the arm straps basically doesn't work with my torso type. I had multiple salespeople trying to help me get it to fit correctly, and there was just nothing that worked. It seems to be another pack that's just not for me. Years ago when I got a new Aether, they had a transformable brain to the pack that you could quickly disconnect, turn it into a backpack, and use it as a summit pack. And I tried it. I went through some very light brush, put holes in it, contacted Osprey and went, hey guys, just like FYI, it looks like you made this out of tissue paper. Look what happened on the first trip out. And the response I got from their customer service is, that feature is not for you. Story of my bloody life. And as far as conditions today, the pattern yesterday was that I woke up, it was sunny, I was hiking in full sun, clouds started to build later in the morning. That turned into thunder and scattered showers until about 3, which is when the big storm arrived. Everything was gray, everything was still, and it just came down and didn't stop. I had a brief break around 6:30 when I finally found that camp, but it was still raining pretty hard when I went to sleep. The little on and off again storms aren't that bad, especially with the umbrella, but when it just starts coming down and doesn't stop, eventually it works its way through almost everything. Again, the umbrella has been the biggest upgrade, though it has been a little more of a struggle with some of the vegetation out here. I have to be careful. There are certain trails where I just couldn't use one at all. And prior to this trip, I have carried umbrellas for weeks at a time, only to give up on them because mostly I was out west, like on the PCT, and while it seemed like a great idea to use it as shade, whenever it was warm, it was also windy, to the point where I just couldn't use the umbrella. After this trip, though, the next East Coast trip, or if we end up in Europe during the rainy season, I will absolutely have one. It is worth it just for the extra level of comfort and peace of mind. And I mean, I have not really had the issue where my phone gets so wet that I can't use the screen or I can't charge it. I think I might have had that once in like Ohio when everything was just humid and soaking wet. But that problem has basically completely gone away thanks to the umbrella. And that alone makes it worth however many ounces of weight. As far as the HMG umbrella that I have versus the I think it's 6 Moon design, kind of standard one. The HMG one is almost twice as expensive. I tried it specifically because I was having trouble catching wind as I was walking through Kansas and other places, and I thought it might be worth it. It seems to work a little better. Honestly, I need to have both umbrellas with me though, because it's very condition dependent. You know, if the wind is hitting the top, it's not as big of a deal versus if it's getting underneath. I will say that while the HMG umbrella is just a little bit wider, that is basically because it's a little shallower, and that's been kind of a mixed bag for me. The extra inch of diameter isn't enough to really notice, but I do notice I can't kind of get under it quite as much if I'm in that kind of moderate wind and rain situation where I do want more coverage, or sun. I did use it quite a lot, kind of hiding in the hollows during the Kansas heat wave. Actually, I don't think that was a Kansas heat wave. I think that was just Kansas in July, August. The other thing that has been a game changer during these really cold rainstorms is these Showa Termes serial killer gloves is what I call them. They're hard to find. They're used by fish packers. They've got a good grip. They have good durability. They seem like they're a little bit breathable over like dish gloves. And I can actually use my poles when it's raining. Before I had these, you know, my hands had to be jammed in the pockets because they were so cold. I went a little too big because I have extra large, because my hands are often bigger than the XL for a lot of gloves. I probably could have done with an XL though. They also make some insulated ones that we've had some success with students using for snow camp, mostly because REI tends to have like snow bunny gloves. They're great if you're skiing or you're snowboarding, but not so much if you need extra dexterity for like mountaineering or just playing in the snow gloves. And I am all about avoiding people having to buy super expensive gear for the wilderness class that they may or may not ever use again. Also, as long as I'm blabbering on about gear, I pay a little extra to get the Nemo switchback foam pads, partially just because they've worked well for me. There are some like no-name brand blue ones I've looked at. However, you might notice the Nemo is bright orange. And when I am out here in hunting season, I kind of figure that is a good thing. And that explains why it's been so quiet through here, I guess. Try to camp in the areas that are restricted to 50-inch or smaller vehicles is the lesson I ran into, and inadvertently scared the crap out of a nice lady who was out here looking for moose and whatnot. That's her vehicle there. I was surprised because it has felt pretty quiet and remote for a while. I keep almost putting my sunglasses on, but I'm superstitious. I get convinced that if I put them on, that's going to start the rain. If I pack them away, oh, that'll bring the sun out. So I've been seeing a ton of empty campsites. Very few people though. I'm finally starting to get into some again. I was starting to wonder if maybe everybody knew something I didn't about the weather. They'd all beaten it. I must be back near civilization. Somebody just passed me in a passenger car. Okay, per somebody that just stopped and said hi, the weather is basically supposed to be like this all day. Chance of scattered rain, but nothing like yesterday. The satellite connection is cool, but it makes me dependent on finding somebody who's around. Right now I'm asking Jen about like, is there availability at the lodge, just so I can kind of set expectations here. I was just talking to somebody about how since the hunters came out, the critters have all disappeared. I had good timing on my brake because sun went away and the temperature has dropped. I might have to put on pants here. So if you thought this trail was going to be content to keep me relatively low and go through the mountain town here to get to the lodge, yeah, you haven't been paying attention. I'm going up this hill and I've got up and over, back up to 11,000 or so. Oh, of course, back to the mud. And up to the crest I go. It is almost cold enough to come down as ice. Almost. I'm not the only one up here, but most of them seem to be heading in a downward direction at the moment. So much for scattered showers. Yeehaw. That's more like it. This area really needed more like this. Hell, this state needed more like this. Oh man, this is more like it. If this really is the end of the Rockies, like I think it is, like I said, I think I'm descending down into Grand Junction. This is not a bad way to finish it. Oh, I'm glad I'm not one of those people that would have taken the low route. Oh, that is looking Utah-y over there. Part of this is clouds, part of it is the water steaming off the rocks. Oh, that makes me happy. So it looks like those are the Buck Cliffs. And yeah, pretty much Utah. Okay, I finally had reception up top. First time in a while. And I was able to get some clear messages back and forth with Jen. It looks like, surprisingly, Grand Mesa Lodge does have reasonable cabins. So she is booking me one of those, and I just have a couple of miles down. And if the guide's right, there should be hot food. That'll get my batteries topped off. No laundry, but, well. And this is why I was nervous about my campsite the other night. So that will make for another slightly short 16-ish mile day, but at the moment, that is sounding just lovely. Oh, this was a good day. Well, that's something I haven't seen for a while. There have been no bloody pit toilets back here. Okay, most of those things sound quite lovely to me. this is a little sparse again. Fortunately, while the resupply options were rather disappointing, they did have hot food and cold beer. Okay, so this is going to be home sweet home for the night. The only problem is, once again, there is not internet. I can get it at the main lodge, but I got to go over there to upload anything.